We're back with another draft prospect breakdown, and today we are here to go to a school that's put out some defensive backs recently, and that's Toledo with Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. So let's get right into it. A lot of safeties here recently, watched a lot of safeties recently, and I was trying to find one that would be really eye-catching for a video, and this is the one that I landed on. There's a ton to talk about, but this is the one that I think is going to stand out as we get closer to this year's draft. 6'1.5", over 200 pounds. The way that he played this season statistically, I mean, he didn't light up the stat sheet in terms of interceptions, but the physicality that he plays with, high forced and completion rate that he brought this past season for Toledo, as well as a four-year senior, I think he's probably going to gain a lot of momentum from fans as we get closer to this year's draft. And he also played pretty well against some of the better competition that he saw this year. Now, unfortunately, he's been a little bit banged up in the past. Last year, missed the last 5 games, had a shoulder injury, had a leg strain heading into this year's bowl game against Louisville. But overall, it was a really good season for him. And this is a player that I absolutely just wanted to talk about because I love the way that he plays. I love the fact that he's utilized on special teams, that he's an impact player there, and his run support is what's going to really, I think, get everybody's attention for what this player can be, especially at his size. It does feel much more like a box safety. There was some flexibility. I think his biggest question mark is going to be the versatility as a man coverage safety, someone that can actually step in and give you great support there outside of matching up with tight ends. I think there's a lot of awareness that shows up, but just truly being able to stick and redirect with receivers. Today's NFL, there's a lot of value in guys that can do that. I think there's going to be other players that are going to top him in that regard. He's not utilized a ton in the slot specifically, especially for man coverage usage. There's a lot more zone pickups that you notice with this player, so I think that's going to be the biggest question mark that he carries with him as a former three-star high school prospect at the safety position. So let's start there with that pass defense. And a lot of this is zone where I want to start first because I think his reactive movement skills are impressive. I think laterally he covers a ton of ground. I think his range is one of the biggest strengths of his game as well. He covers a ton of space and split coverages. He covers a lot more ground than you would expect. As a single high safety, he can work really from hash to hash with no problem. And at the collegiate level, obviously those are much wider, so it's different. But the point is, he covers a lot of ground laterally in a hurry. And then when you put him underneath, where I really love him as kind of a box safety, his ability in underneath zone coverage to cover a lot of ground just in a hurry, utilize inverted looks, get out to the flats. If he is in a cover 3 and he's responsible for the flat, to race underneath the number 1 receiver. You see some bend in his game, which allows some redirect as well. I think he's got pretty loose hips, the bail and retreat, the fluidity, the movements in level 1 zone coverage to kind of match up and stick with early stems of routes. I think that's where he's very impressive in zone coverage. I think he also shows some real awareness here when he projects vertical routes over the top, when he's kind of sitting on top of routes and he can take those away and just not let guys get behind him. I think his long speed, though, is a little bit more questionable. Tracking speed, to me, tends to be a bit questionable as well. There's no doubt that you can get behind him at this safety position, so he has to kind of set himself up early, and oftentimes he may not do the best job of doing that. He gets a little bit more aggressive, and he's not actually set up early to protect over top. I think when you talk about turning and running, that's where he gets problems. In terms of being able to bail and retreat in his pedal and keep routes in front of him, that's where he does succeed, and he can hold in that back pedal a long time. But once he's out of that and you're just in a straight foot race, I think that's where he gets a little bit closer to average. But again, the lateral foot quickness is great, especially when you talk about protecting seams. I think he's got really good pace at the top of routes when you think about syncing with receiver breaks and kind of timing those up. He plays with a little bit more flexibility for a guy that's more upright than you would expect, but he's explosive. His transitions are explosive laterally. When he does open his hips, turn and run, you think about it from a single high alignment to cover sideline to sideline, he's explosive. I just think he gets a little bit over aggressive in some of those single high positions that he puts himself in. Wrap coverage, so if you get him into a spot where guys attack his blind spot or get to a position where you think he's in trouble in a double move, he protects it very quickly with a lot of bend to his game and maintaining really good speed to protect his blind spot and recovery spots. We saw that against Kent State specifically this past season. I also like the physicality nature to his game. It's not just as a run defender, but it's also in coverage. His consistency to reroute near the line of scrimmage, I think, is a huge part of his game. He tags receivers consistently, and that's also plays into the communication that he brings as well, and the way that he can kind of work away from plays, goal line situations, the way that he flows with the quarterback in short yard situations, but constantly tagging, getting a sense for where receivers are around him. I think it's a big element to his game. It can be a little bit dangerous the deeper downfield because now he's creating illegal contact, but when he's more underneath, I think it's a trait that you do like. Kate's well pre-snap. I think there's times where I feel like he could be more maybe vocal, where I don't know that everybody got the message across that he was trying to relay. The snap is made. He's got a very active demeanor for communication at that point, and I think his awareness starts to shine here as well. He picks up assignments well. He works through stacks. He works through bunches. He works through quarterback movement, he kind of has an ability to just pick up routes that were just uncovered specifically. He's a pretty long strider. It does help him cover a little bit more ground for a single high safety role as long as he doesn't let guys get behind him specifically. And I think that balance can be a bit of an issue. There are times where I feel like, okay, he's just playing too shallow. Things are going to get behind him. And there's also instances where he's playing deep over top and you don't feel like he has that maybe trigger to actually plant and drive, like from a cover 3 alignment and take away an over route. And instead, things just kind of happen in front of him. And too often, I feel like he can actually get caught completely away from the play, actually feel his impact. He has range, but there's a lot of instances where he's not really involved in the play. He's on the opposite side of the field, and you never really see him work his way onto where the ball is. Like him in cover 4, I think that's where his range pops. He was on the ball in a hurry. We had a beautiful interception against Western Kentucky where he just jumped and out a route for the number 1 receiver. He pretty quickly makes a determination, like receivers in breaking an in route. Now he can go give support elsewhere, how the quarterback is playing this as well. I think there's some predetermined decisions that he makes, which could be a little bit questionable, but for the most part, he was very accurate with those decisions that he was making, like when to bail, when to stay in and kind of fit a run lane. Man, there's where I have the questions. I don't think he's as fluid when you talk about that transition to really turn and run, and I think it shows up the most when trying to pick up routes and stay connected through the top of route breaks. He plays a little bit tall. I just don't think it's as natural for him to kind of ride your hip. He plays a little bit upright. He does have bend, but I think it loses a lot of juice out of breaks, and that leads to him giving up a lot of ground in off-man coverage, unless, again, it's like a tight end, and that's where he's going to match up well because he's got the ball skills. He's super long at the catch point, and he's got a lot of physicality to go with as well. You're not going to run this guy over. And he does a great job early on the stem of routes to position himself, kind of take them away laterally. He doesn't allow you to bend routes and get a step or get a leverage on him. But you talk about receivers, he can be much more shaky, I think, in those spots. His short area burst is good when working underneath, so plant, drive, quickly react to the ball being thrown out into a flat, driving on that and running through the tackle. I like all those things. And he does play on his toes, so there's a nice little bounce to his game. There's an urgency to it. He never feels like he's caught that flat-footed specifically, and he's got the body control, the patience to connect with tight ends. And this is really good because he works through traffic well. He works through pick routes really well. He's got some real fluidity working through those things. He doesn't feel very herky-jerky when he's trying to match up with guys in coverage, but he will get a little bit aggressive in terms of how he oversets early, reacting to the early movement, especially when he's more underneath, and he'll kind of put himself in a less advantageous situation because of where he's declared himself early on the play. Ankle bends there. He can sift through traffic and step down off of routes. I love that. It gives him a lot more range, and also in zone coverage, allows guys to get vertically, steps down is underneath, and he's going to kind of take away multiple receivers because he has that to his game as well. An awareness takes away backside routes and goal line spots. For me, I think that he excels in zone. I think Man's going to be a little bit more shaky, but you could definitely put him on tight end. He's going to match up well. I think people are going to love that prototype, and his physicality is going to have to be leaned into here, I think, to eliminate some of the inconsistencies just staying connected. But where he does shine, of course, is what he does as a run defender, and you just love watching this. He is incredibly physical. He finds the ball between the tackles. He has constant urgency to do it as well. There's a fearlessness to his game. He settles down, and when he stands up ball carries, you feel it. He's done it in the goal line. He's done it out in space. I mean, there is a stopping power to his game. He really leans into the size that he has. He's attacking downhill. Sometimes he gets caught just kind of throwing his shoulder, but he's very impactful at that hit point. Like, there's real pop to it, so he does tend to stun ball carriers. He's an electric closer to the football. I love how on read options, quarterback options, he takes those away. He gives attention to that. Occasionally, you may get to a spot where he's just too aggressive in how he's actually filling angles, or that he does take himself out of the play, because I don't know how well he actually reads through the run scheme at this point. Some things feel a little bit too patient as well, but I can tell you that there is always an awareness to, okay, quarterback could take off here, or someone's leaking out on a backside screen. He does have a feel for that, so typically that's going to be taken away when you have him to move laterally. A little bit slow moving off a spot, and him being a little bit upright can make it a little bit more difficult for him to actually settle down. I think in open field tackling, that hurts him a bit as well, but he's got a wide tackle radius. He covers a lot of ground as a finisher. He's low. He's a striker. Strikes low below the knees. Brings you down in a hurry. Really doesn't allow much leakage. If he makes a tackle, you're probably not going anywhere after first contact. But he will miss some tackles, and that is a little bit of a problem, especially in space. He will miss some tackles. It's kind of that last line of defense, I think, specifically. But he's explosive when he's making plays on the ball carrier. He jumps screens. He runs through tackles, keeps his feet running. He's got agility. He's got some bend to his game. He can really sidestep blocks. Then he can also beat you to a spot, and he's got the aggression to set the tone first on blocks. I think he could use his hands a little bit better to actually wall off blocks, but he will be the initiator of contact, which I do like, and he drops his weight to wrap up ball carriers and, again, stand them up at the point of attack. To me, This is a player that with that lateral scrape speed could be really good between the box. I think it opens up his blitz potential, though I didn't see it a ton. I think it opens up. It's good for me right now. And overall, this is going to be a player that is immediately going to be valuable on special teams. Regardless of if he gets out there on defense in year one, he's going to be a special teamer that probably plays on every unit if you wanted him to. And athletically, it would make sense to do that with his play speed slash his toughness and the physicality that he brings to the table. I think he's a smart player from this point. I think he's good, and he's got good football intelligence. He's got a good feel for the game. I think he's got some awareness. He's pretty good off script, I would say, and he makes impacts all over the field. He's good at making impact all over the field. I think he's just better near the line. His man coverage for me is the biggest sticking point. I think it's slightly below average to average at best. His zone coverage is better. I think this is going to be a plus. It's going to be above average looked at for him. I don't think it's elite necessarily at consistently finding routes in zone, but I think ultimately, and I have a little bit more inconsistencies with how he sets himself up for angles as a single high, but ultimately here, I do think his range helps him a ton, and his length helps him a ton in these spots as well with his aggression. He's not really that hesitant to go make a play, which I think is a big positive for him, especially the closer to the line he is. But his range, his ball skills, that's a plus. Again, his tracking speed's not elite, but he is good at making plays at the catch point. He's physical there, maybe over physical, but he's physical. But he doesn't really tend to grab early, but I think a lot of that's because he's just arriving at the catch point, being in zone. He tackles, great tackler, good blitzer. I think that's more upside-based. Great physicality, plus communicator to me, and again, special teams value. Right now, I'm at a 6.21 is kind of my early final grade for Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. He's one of my favorites to watch. I don't think he fits everybody, but I think someone would look for size, looking for a little bit of a physical demeanor at safety. Maybe not the most versatility as like, hey, we could put him in a slot. Like, I don't think you want to do that. And at safety, there is flexibility because he's got a lot of range and he bails well and he's played both assignments. I kind of like him a little bit more. I think in a split coverage, if you're going to ask him to play more of a free safety role. But if you ask him to, play a little bit more as a single high, I think he's comfortable there because he played a lot, but I like him closer to the line of scrimmage. I like him jamming tight ends at the line. I like him being physical early, and I like utilizing all of the run game assets that he brings, especially as a zone piece. So to me, it won't fit everybody. I think heavy man teams may be a little bit less interested in this piece, but I especially think zone teams are going to like what they get out of Emmanuel. So that's Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.